Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran and I'm here with Jack, Barteck, and Riv. This is now episode 36. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Sydney Myers from Dallas Hoops Cast to discuss the Mavericks potentially moving up in the draft. Then we'll talk about signings in the NBA such as Stan Van Gundy to the Pelicans and Daryl Morey to the 76ers. After we finish talking about the NBA, we'll move on to the NFL and talk about the Steelers, the Lions' playoff chances, Des Bryant signing with the Ravens, Seattle trading for Carlos Dunlap, the trade deadline, and our top 10 NFL teams going into Week 8. So how's everybody doing today?
Can't complain. Another day filming podcasts.
Yes, sir.
Gloomy.
So we're about to admit Sydney Myers into the podcast right now. Just saying we're live.
What is she, a Dallas fan?
Yeah, she is.
Really?
Yeah, she's right. She's here right now.
Oh, so she heard me?
Yeah. Can you just speak so I could see if let me see. Hello?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, wow.
All right. Let me see which one are you. Okay.
Yeah, I totally heard that.
Okay,
it's
so
okay. There's no shame in being a Mavericks fan.
No, I didn't say it was shame. I was just like, I was just curious.
I honestly don't know if I've ever met a Mavericks
Me
fan.
either. That's why I was just so
Yeah,
It's
confused.
just
either.
in this area, they're not very common, so it's cool to be able
Yeah.
to, it's been a wild decade, I feel like, for the Mavericks, transitioning from Dirk and that championship team all the way to now when you have Luka, Kristaps, and you're building towards maybe another championship contender. It must be a pretty cool fanhood to have had over the past decade.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Dirk part, yes, awesome. 2011 was awesome. After that, it was kind of a roller coaster. It was a little rocky because, they had the plan of always going after a free agent in the offseason, which meant they wanted to have contracts that were either expiring or they would just sign 1-year deals. And, naturally, you're not going to get a lot of good players like that. And so there was some pretty bad years. I mean, there were some years where they made the playoffs and they were kind of fun. But yeah, leading up to getting Luka, obviously, if you have a top 5 pick, you're not a good team. So it was a little rough. But I mean, now having Luka, yeah, it's freaking exciting. I love it.
yeah, that's some good luck. I'm a Knicks fan, so I don't know that feeling. You guys have my star player, the player I put so much faith in, Kristaps.
Yeah. That was we totally robbed you in that trade. I mean, not only did we get Kristaps, but also Tim Hardaway Jr., Trey Burke, who the Mavs waived, but then now they have him back and might keep him this coming season. So yeah, that was we won that trade. I mean, in my opinion, I know some Knicks fans feel differently, but
They're
it
idiots.
was a good trade for us.
Knicks fans are idiots.
So I got a question. When that trade happened, were you ever high on Dennis Smith Jr. at all?
Okay, so when the Mavericks drafted Dennis Smith Jr., he was touted as like one of the steals of the draft because I got him 9th. And he was, coming out of college, really dynamic. He was this freak athlete. And so I had hopes for him. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's going to be so much fun. I mean, he plays a lot like Russell Westbrook, not on that level, but like that's his style. And I was like, man, this is going to be so awesome. I mean, there were reports of like the Mavericks chest bumping in the war room on draft night. So yeah, there were high hopes. But for me personally, once the season started, we could kind of see pretty quickly that he wasn't what we thought that he would be. And again, this is my opinion. There are some Mavericks fans who still believe in Dennis Smith Jr. And I mean, that's fine. I don't have anything against him, but just in terms of like what I thought he would be, probably about halfway through the season, it was kind of like, okay, this guy, I thought he was going to be a Rookie of the Year candidate and he was not that. So I kind of realized it by the end of his rookie year. And then once Luka was drafted and they just didn't fit and Smith had these weird ideas about his role. Yeah, I lost faith in him pretty much by his second season.
Yeah, I lost faith in him a couple games into the Knicks season. Actually, when the trade first happened and he had like a couple 20-point games,
I watched him get booed.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty high on him. But then going into next year, I thought our starting lineup was going to be Dennis Smith, RJ, Kevin Knox, Randall, Robinson, and for some reason I thought that was a great lineup to put out
You
there.
were optimistic. That's all
And
it was.
DSJ completely disappointed, and so did Kevin Knox. Like right now, I think both of them are pretty much trending towards being bust, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Smith, well, first of all, I felt bad that he got booed. I mean, that's just wrong. Like, it's just, you just don't do that. I mean, I felt bad for him. But I mean, yeah, he has struggled, and I think it's more the mental aspect of the game for him. I mean, obviously, again, he is a freak athlete. He's very athletic. Shooting, it comes and goes. He's not a terrible shooter. I mean, he's a fine scorer, but I think the mental part of it, of like running an offense, of knowing when to go, when to slow, those cliche things, how to use a pick, I think those things he hasn't quite figured out yet.
Yeah, pretty much. You said it all.
That's
It's just
putting it
funny.
nicely.
It's just funny, like how to use a pick.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah,
issue.
it's
That's an issue
that
for
is
a
an
former
issue.
9th overall
That's an
pick
issue
if he
for a
doesn't know
point
that by
guard.
now.
Yeah, no, you should learn by the NBA. You should have that down packed, at least in some form or fashion.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's definitely a problem. But I mean, like I've heard some NBA players that some of these guys that come out of college, they're only there for 1 year, and sometimes it's not enough time to learn some of these things that take years to learn. But then you have guys like Luca who just get it. So who
To be
knows?
fair, though, when he went to NC State, he wasn't really taught much. He kind of was given the keys and just went out there and played ball, just went out there and just to score. He wasn't really taught the game because he didn't go to a high college with a great coach.
And he was the offense there.
Yeah.
mhm.
Hmm.
So we're gonna move off from Dennis Smith and talk about the Mavericks. So there's reports that they're trying to trade up into the lottery, and I don't really know why. I feel like they're pretty much set at every position, and they should use their cap space to probably sign another star. But in your opinion, what do you feel like is the missing position or piece for the Mavericks?
Well, one thing that they really need to improve is their defense. At their best this past season, they were middle of the league, 15th in defensive rating, and then they kind of fluctuated from there. So they need to improve their defense. I think at least a top 10 defense. And that could come at any position. I know that the Mavericks have been linked to these versatile wings like Danilo Gallinari and Tobias Harris. And I know you guys talked about Danilo Gallinari on who the Mavericks should target. He would definitely improve their offense, but I don't think he would improve their defense. I'm not saying they wouldn't go after him, but it just surprises me they're linked to him. So, yeah, if they were going to draft a player, I would say that kind of player, a defensive wing. However, I read that report from Brad Townsend on Dallas Morning News that they were trying to trade up into the lottery. And to be honest, I think they might use that pick, but I kind of think that they're getting assets to trade for a star, because that was the report that they are desperate to get a third star. And so I kind of think that they're just willing to trade what it takes to get a lottery pick so they can use that asset to trade for a star.
Yeah, because when I was looking at the draft prospects, the only people that I thought that maybe the Dallas Mavericks are targeting them is probably Obi Toppin, because I know Atlanta, they want to trade out of the 6th pick. I don't know if they trade with Dallas after how their last trade went. But if you guys can get the 6th pick, Obi Toppin is a likely possibility, and so is Tyrese Halliburton. And those are the two guys that I think, would go well with the Mavericks. Tyrese Halliburton could be the other lead guard for them.
I'm really not as high on Obi Toppin as everybody else.
I really like the Tyrese.
Yeah, I like the
Halliburton
Tyrese
pick,
one.
though.
I don't know about Obi though.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, like there are some gems in this draft, but no one is extremely excited about this draft class. There are some really good players, and you guys mentioned a couple of them, but when I look at the Mavs and their history, they rarely trade up in the draft. Like at least over the past 10 years, we'll say. Like the last time they traded up in the draft was to get Luka Doncic, and there's not a Luka Doncic in this draft that we know of. I mean, other than that, the Mavericks have always traded down, including the year when Giannis was available at their pick, they traded down. So that's why this report of them wanting to trade up into the lottery, it doesn't fit the Mavericks unless there was a guy that was the next Luka. And since that guy isn't there, that's why I think that this is more just a smaller move that's part of a bigger play.
So do you have like a third star in mind? Like if you had to trade somebody, who would be the person you would take?
I mean, there's been a lot of like talk among Mavs fans about guys like Drew Holiday and Bradley Beal and Victor Oladipo, even Chris Paul. And I think all those guys would fit. I think that's more Mavs fans talking more than any insiders. Like I don't think the Mavericks, they haven't been linked to any of those guys. I would love to have Victor Oladipo or Bradley Beal. They're the kind of wings that the Mavericks need in terms of playing defense, but also being dynamic playmakers, because that's what the Mavericks really need, is another playmaker so that Luka doesn't have to make every single play in terms of either scoring or getting the assist. So Oladipo and Bradley Beal, I love those guys. I don't think the Mavericks are actually going after them. Again, the two guys that I've heard that were in that report were Gallinari and Tobias Harris. And I think both of those guys fit too. They don't necessarily improve the Mavericks defensively, but they would fit into the offense perfectly because both of them are actually kind of the same player when you look at them. They can make plays. They're versatile scorers. They fit into roster spots, in the starting lineup that the Mavericks have. They fit into their system. So those two guys, I mean, yeah, even though they wouldn't improve them defensively, I think, yeah, they would be a much better team with one of those guys.
I actually found it really surprising when I heard this report about the Mavericks wanting to trade into the top few picks to find the third star, because you contrast that with the Hawks, who had a similar report of how they were going to try and find the third star by trading out of their sixth pick. So I do like how you're talking about it might be a smaller part of a bigger move for a star. And two of the names that you said that I really liked were Victor Oladipo and Drew Holiday. I think, like you mentioned, they're missing a little bit of that playmaking, but also defense, and both of those guys would bring exactly that. So I think that, like you mentioned, targeting a defensive-centric player, maybe not defensive-centric, but a good defender would be the most important thing, because I feel like they don't have that right now.
Yeah, I mean, they have. So obviously, Kristaps Porzingis, he can block shots. They have Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a very good defender. He's basically a 3-and-D guy. They have some guys off the bench. Maxi Kleber, who has started intermittently. He's a pretty good defender. I mean, they have some of those guys, but for the most part, you're talking about Luka, Hardaway. These guys are not extremely dynamic defenders. And so, yeah, improving on that end would help. But I mean, it's like, usually when you talk about a championship team, so people talk about defense wins championships, which is true. You generally would have to have like a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. I don't think there's a player that makes them instantly like go from 15th on defense to a top 5 defense.
Absolutely.
But if they can get into like a top 10 defense and then pair that with an all-time great offense, I would take my chances with that.
Maybe Isaac Okoro if they were to move up.
One guy that I was actually thinking of was a guy that you've mentioned a lot for the Knicks, Devin Vassell.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too.
Great three-point shooter, really good defender at his position. He's coming from Florida State. I love what Leonard Hamilton does down there, so he's going to be well coached coming into the league. And I just think that he would fit perfectly into this lineup that they have.
Another guy from Florida State I was thinking was Patrick Williams. Versatile 6'9" forward. He locks down and he's athletic too. So I was thinking those three guys, Okoro, Williams, and Vassell, would be good pickups for the Mavericks.
But when I look at the Mavericks assets, it's like they have the 18th overall pick and the 31st pick in this draft. I don't think that's enough to move up into the lottery. Maybe like late in the lottery. Yeah, maybe late, but not enough to get a player that's actually going to make an impact right away. So when I look at that, they'd have to give up a player too. And I don't think the Mavericks have any players that I would want to give up. I would not want to move off of Dorian Finney-Smith or Kleber. The only person maybe I'd move off of is Jalen Brunson. Yeah. It's like their only asset that I'd be okay with trading.
Yeah, so the report is that the Mavericks are willing to trade anybody not named Luka or Kristaps. So I agree with you. Like, I love Dorian, Maxey, Seth Curry, Brunson, all these guys. I love them, but apparently the Mavericks they're in win now mode. And so willing to trade whatever it takes to get, whether it's they see somebody in the lottery that's just worth it, just getting assets to trade for a star. They're willing to do what it takes, which is another reason why I'm not so sure that they really are going to use that draft pick, why they might just be using it to get assets. It's kind of like that story of that guy that traded a paperclip for something that eventually turned into a house. Like, these guys that they have maybe aren't worth a star, but if they can flip them for a lottery pick and then take their 3 picks plus whatever players are left, maybe they can get a star with that and they call it a win. We'll see.
Do you agree with the mindset though, win now mode, with Luka being this young and Porzingis still being this young?
So to me, it's better than the alternative, because what the Mavericks, like I was saying in the beginning, what they've done is always going after the free agent, which means that the regular season sometimes doesn't matter because they have guys like on 1-year deals. And so when you talk about like going after Giannis in 2021, it's like, okay, that means 1-year deals, expiring contracts or whatever. It's not a fun way to play. It's not a fun way to watch. So I think win now is great. Obviously, you don't make any irrational decisions. You don't do anything stupid, but you make the moves that are available. You get the guys that are available. There have been free agents available. There have been trades available that they passed on, or rookies that were available in the draft, like Giannis, that they passed on because they were always going after a free agent. So, you take what's available in order to win now. Luka being who he is, being as great as he is this early, I don't think you need to wait for anything. I don't even think you need a guy like Giannis, because Luka is going to be a top 5 player in the league. So I think it makes sense as long as they don't do anything stupid, which I don't think that they will. And so, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we covered basically most of what this topic has to offer. You guys have anything to add on to it?
The one thing that I did want to add is I think a guy who they could target without even having to move up is somebody that I think has been super underrated throughout this process. I don't know if he makes it to 18, but if he does, I think he would be a great pickup. I know you'll know the name because as Seton Hall fans, we watched him a lot last year. Saddiq Bey from Villanova, who I was surprised he left, actually. I thought he was going to stay another year.
I thought he was going to leave.
But
he
was a top 5 3-point shooter in the country, a great 3-point shooter, and arguably the best defender. He would take on tough assignments every night. In the Big East, there was no days off. And under Jay Wright, he's going to be coached well coming into the league. They already had success with Jalen Brunson, a Villanova guy coming in being successful. I like the fit. And, that's if they can't find a way to move up, have to pick at 18. I think that Saddiq Bey could be a guy that could come in and give an immediate impact.
Yeah, I think if they don't move up into the lottery, they might even just keep trading down. That's just a guess, again, based on what they've normally done. But I will say, if they want to trade up into the lottery, or if they want to make some kind of trade, they have a way of always winning trades. And I mean, that we were talking about the Knicks trade and how they've yeah. And I mean, Donnie Nelson, he's just good at winning trades. I mean, even if you go back before the Kristaps Porzingis trade and look at some of the ones they made to get Tyson Chandler and Raymond Felton from the Knicks, they traded Jose Calderon, Samuel Dalembert, Wayne Ellington. Before that, in order to get Darren Collison, who became their starting point guard, they traded Jan Mahimi, who was really nothing at the time. To get Tyson Chandler the first time, they traded Matt Carroll, Eric Dampier, Eddie Nahara. Like, they always have a way of winning trades, like just ultimately winning trades. And so if they want to do it, if they see something, then I know they're going to win that trade. And I know they're probably going to get what they want, whether that's, getting somebody in the draft that they think no one else can really see the talent of, or if it's just using that to get a star player. Trades is like, that's what Donnie Nelson does. And so when I hear that report, I get excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. If you said it, they have a way of winning trades, so they'll probably win whatever trade they make if they decide to move up or if they decide to trade down.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for being on the podcast and doing this segment with us. So you can find Sydney on Dallas Hoops Cast. It's on YouTube, right? I've checked out some of your videos.
Yeah. So the site's DallasHoopsCast.com. Yeah. And the podcast is Dallas Hoops Fancast. So you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify everywhere. And then, yeah, we post the episodes on YouTube. The channel is Dallas Hoops Cast, and some clips too. I like what you guys do, how you post the short clips. So I started doing that too, and people really like it. I think because not everyone can listen to an hour-long episode, which I get. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's there too. Yeah. And then the site, DallasHoopsCast.com. By the way, I love y'all's show. It's really great. I love listening to it. So this was a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait,
we appreciate it.
Where can we wave? Can she see us?
The camera's
I
right
can
there.
see all of you guys.
We can't see
we
you.
can't see
Only-
you. Yeah.
only
Yeah,
Joel
because it's
can
weird
see you.
because the computer in front of me
Yeah.
is the one that I can see you on, so they can't see you. That's why you saw him peeking because he can't see you.
Oh, that's funny.
And hopefully,
Okay, cool.
hopefully we'll talk again during the season, and the Mavericks will be able to find that guy and make a little bit of a run.
Definitely. I hope so. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, so thank you. Take care.
Cool. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye. Okay, now I'm just about to stop the recording.
You ever notice how our endings are so like awkward? Like it gets silent,
Yeah.
and then it's just like,
That's
okay,
that's
bye.
the worst part about Zoom.
Yeah, bro. That is the worst part about Zoom.
They'd be like, okay, well, all right,
Whether
bye.
it's like a class,
I think
a
that's
meeting,
the
whatever it
that's
is.
the worst part about just having people on in general, because you're talking about a subject and you don't want it to go too long and
Mhm.
forever.
Yeah.
You know that you have to stop it somewhere.
And it's unfortunate because she was great to talk to too. Like I feel like we could have done like an hour long
You heard the little
episode.
Texas accent? I love y'all's show.
All right, so we're gonna go into our next topic now. Now I can stop looking at the notes through my phone. I was looking at it through my phone. Look, expectations for the Pelicans signing Stan Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy got signed by them. I think this is like old news. Like, when did it happen? A week or two ago?
Like 4 days ago, bro.
No, it didn't. Did it happen 4 days ago?
It didn't happen a week ago.
It was in between 4
Because
days.
we
and
could
a
have
week.
talked about it on a show and we didn't.
Yeah, I think it was like a day before. I don't think it was a week ago. I think it was like a day or two before.
I think it was after the last show with the three of us, but before the show with the two of us. But we
okay.
did all football on the show. That was just the two of us.
All right, so expectations for Pelicans after signing Stan Van Gundy. The major question, simple. How is he going to handle Zion, and if they're going to make the playoffs? That's what everybody's wondering right now.
I think expectations was going to be the same whether it didn't matter what coach they had. I think expectations are still playoffs. I think they were trending the right way with Zion. They were, I think, 11-9 when he played. So you re-sign Brandon Ingram. That should be the first step. Re-signing Brandon Ingram, getting a few guys in, re-sign Alonzo Ball, and then you run it back. You run it back with the same squad. I think the squad was pretty good. You had Derek Favors to anchor down defense. You had Zion. He was coming into his own. Lonzo, you saw the defense. He was playmaking. Him and Zion have great chemistry. Brandon Ingram was coming into that number one scoring star. Drew Holiday was still, he was still kind of trending, but you seen his role was still very key. I think you run the right way. You run the same team. You let Stan Van Gundy's first year be a lesson year, and then you just run it back and try to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team in his first year. The reason I say that is because a guy who we actually just talked about in the last segment, I've linked to the Nets. I think he will be a perfect fit for my Nets. Drew Holiday, his name has been floated around in so many trade discussions.
Everywhere.
Are they going to give him up? I have no idea. I don't think there's been any solid reports about him going anywhere.
I don't think he
But
stays, though.
if they do end up trading him, which I think would be a wise move for them, because I don't think they're at that win now mode just yet, and they could trade Drew Holiday for some solid assets, add to this young core, and even if they don't end up developing every single asset, it would give them a laundry list of guys to go and make a push for a superstar like the Mavericks and Hawks are doing right now. They would just have so many assets. But if they keep Drew Holiday, I think there's no reason they shouldn't be a playoff team this year.
I agree.
They bring back Brandon Ingram. They get Zion, hopefully at full strength all season. You saw what they did at the end of the season last year. They looked like a totally different team with him on the court. And if you can get similar production out of Zion Williamson, there's no reason they shouldn't be a playoff team in the West. Not only a playoff team in the West, but a team to watch out for an upset come playoff time.
I don't know about
Damn,
that one.
yeah, I don't know.
I
That's
don't know.
tough.
I had to stop. I don't know about that one, but I think they'll definitely be shooting for the 8th, 7th seed.
The reason why, I would love to pick the Pelicans to make the playoffs, but the reason why I'm not completely sold is because the West is so stacked. You have Golden State coming back. Portland's probably going to be healthy. Phoenix is an up-and-coming team. Like, what team is going to drop?
Well, James Harden might get traded, so we might see the end of Houston.
It's very true.
But if he's not traded, they're still going to be there.
Absolutely.
I think it all just depends on Zion, if he's going to play or not, if he's going to play at that superstar level that people thought he's going to, which we think he's going to be. We think he's going to transcend. He's going to become into that player. But just in terms of Stan Van Gundy and what they're getting, I mean, the only losing seasons he had in his career was when he was with Detroit. And he made the playoffs with them 1 year. But Detroit's always been kind of dysfunctional. Their roster was never built the correct way. And he made the playoffs with Detroit. And I feel like right now with the Pelicans, you have something to work with. Like there are players there, foundational players. Lonzo, Zion, Josh Hart is there. You have Brandon Ingram, Derek Favors, like you said. I like Nicola Melli, whatever his name is.
I like him too.
I know his last name's Melli. I'm not sure about his first name. Drew Holiday, like you mentioned. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I feel like he can turn into a great player too. The reason I just can't pick him to make the playoffs is because the West is so stacked. It's just so stacked.
They're going to fight.
Unless Zion turns into year 2, what Luka turned into year 2, then I really don't see them making a jump into the playoffs.
That's the big question mark, is what is Zion going to be in his second year? Is he going to – I personally think that if he can play the way he did over the last – what did he play, 2 weeks of the season before going into the bubble?
Might have been more.
I honestly think
games?
that they can be a 7th or 8th, maybe even a 6th seed if he plays to that level all year. But that's a huge question mark considering it's essentially his rookie year. He barely played last year. He's going to go through those growing pains that every rookie goes through. And I just have my doubts on what he's going to be in year 2.
The question's obviously going to be on Zion, but I feel like questions should be asked on the supporting cast. How is Brandon Ingram going to improve his game more? How is Lonzo Ball also going to improve his game more? Jackson Hayes, how are the guys, not just Zion, but the other young guys, how are they going to come into, okay, this is year 2, Zion's healthy. We know what we are. We know what we do. We got a new coach. What are we going to do? So I'm pretty interested to see. You got them, like you said, the Suns, the Kings are still around. They're still a young team. You got the Warriors.
They're coached by Luke Walton.
Yeah, he is terrible.
So I kind of discount them.
The Warriors coming back. We got a lot of teams in the West, so it's going to be interesting to see who's who.
They have the 13th pick in the draft as well.
What do you think they'll pick?
I think Aaron Nesmith falls to them.
At 13?
Yeah.
That would be a great value for them at 13. And it's just another case of building assets.
And I think if they get him, they're going to trade Drew Holiday faster than.
Yeah, most likely. And he can shoot. He can shoot.
I know
when he was. Right?
No, he's a righty.
When he was mentioned with the Nets, I was hearing that there was going to be packages of Spencer Dinwiddie or Karis LeVert and Jared Allen and a pick. That's a huge haul. And to compare that to other, if you're going to get that deal or a similar deal from multiple teams, that's going to be a great deal to bring in probably 3 assets that you could use down the road.
I keep hearing Paul George to Brooklyn.
Paul George? For who?
I heard that. I
keep hearing that. I don't know, but it keeps swirling. Paul George to Brooklyn.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think that's
I don't know.
No, I don't even think that's a bad fit. I just think that the Clippers would not do it. There's nobody on the Nets that they would take
Spencer
for
Dinwiddie,
Paul George.
And Karis
Dinwiddie and LeVert for Paul George. I wouldn't do it.
And Jared Allen
and a pick.
I wouldn't do it for Paul George.
I wouldn't do it.
I mean, if you realize as the Clippers, if you realize this is not going to work and Kawhi's going to leave, then I think you pull the trigger
that would be
faster than normal.
I think it would be great for the Clippers. I think they need a change.
What's weird about the Clippers is that Kawhi, if he leaves, it just makes no sense because he wanted to be in LA in the first place.
Well, his contract is up next year.
No, yeah, it is. And I think if they're not trending towards winning, he probably does, but it's weird. Where is he going to go?
They got a lot to figure out this offseason.
Go to the Knicks.
I'm sure Montrez is gone. They're going to have to find a playmaking guard. I know they've
actually been talking to get Rondo. Yeah.
Which would be a big mistake if the Lakers let him go. But if they did, that would be a great signing for the Clippers. But they need to find a playmaking guard. They need to find a big. I know everybody hates the big position in the NBA these days. I don't know why everybody's trending away from a big. But you need a solid big man on your team because it's not like the big men have gone away in the NBA. It's just that some teams don't use them. But you look at guys like Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, they still exist, and you're still going to have to guard them if you want to work your way to a championship. Carl Towns, I don't know if you'll have to get through him to go to a championship, but
I'm just saying, big in the West,
Like, they're still there, and I think that was a big weakness of the Clippers last year, and it killed them in the Nuggets series because every possession they had to throw a double at Jokic.
Because Harold always sucks.
And he would throw the swing pass, and they shot the lights out of the ball. And that is what beat them, is because they didn't have a defensive scheme except for double Jokic. So I feel like they have a lot of changes they're going to have to make to their roster. I don't think that trading Paul George would be the worst idea, considering the way things ended this past season. And I'm not even trying to hate on Paul George. It's just I don't know how much things are going to work out there.
I think his trade value is extremely low right now.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be the best time to trade him.
Pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, considering what OKC got for him after an MVP-like season, they got a lot from LA. It's not often when you find a great GM available on the market, but it happened this time. Daryl Morey.
Oh, I'm sorry, you confused me. That you were talking about
Philadelphia signed Daryl Morey, and I think this was a great move. People talk about how his first move in Philly is kind of trading Simmons because he can't shoot, but I think that's wrong. Like, I think Daryl Morey isn't super fixated on these analytics, and well, he is fixated on these analytics, but Ben Simmons fits analytics. He's just not a great shooter.
Yeah. People confuse analytics for just shooting numbers when realistically it's not that. And Ben Simmons does so much on the floor.
He assists
that analytics loves.
I think last year he assisted on the second most 3-point shots made.
He's a great defender, one of the better perimeter defenders in the league.
Ben Simmons is a great player. I think we can all agree he's a great player. He just doesn't want to shoot the
three ball. I think Ben Simmons is a great player, but he's
a liability.
He's not a superstar. He's not a star player. He's a role player to role to great player.
Whoa!
I
consider him a star.
No, I don't think he's a star because do you think Ben Simmons can be the first or second best player on the championship team?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Not the first.
I think he could definitely be the second.
I think Ben Simmons is Draymond. He needs a Clay and Curry. He needs a Clay and Curry.
Draymond was a star at a point in his life.
Draymond, yeah, but he was a star, but
you could be a third
that's
star.
What I think Simmons is. Simmons is a 16, 8, and 8 guy. He's not a 25, 8, and 8 guy.
I think he can be a 20 to 25, 8, and 8 guy, though.
Listen, I have been one of the biggest critics of Ben Simmons that you can find. And when it comes down to it, I think that 2 years ago during the Nets playoff series against the 76ers, Jared Dudley hit the nail on the head and got killed for it. In the half court, Ben Simmons is an above-average player. He's an above-average player in the half court. But on the fast break, defensively and playmaking-wise, he is one of the best in the league at those three things. And I think that qualifies him to be a star.
When I say role player, I don't mean it in the way that you guys are taking it.
What I meant it,
Chris Middleton, can we agree he's a role player? He's playing a role to a superstar to win.
Can you use a different? All right, can you just use a different word? I feel like role players really just it's just discrediting these players.
When you talk about Giannis, we say his role players have to step up. That includes Middleton. I think Ben Simmons is a role player, sidekick kind of guy. He can't be the best player on the championship team, and I don't think he can be the second best either.
How can you say that though? At 20, he's 23. How can you say that early?
Because when you've seen players in the league for a while, you kind of know what they're gonna be. He's a better Draymond.
That's pretty tough.
Draymond's a great player, but he's a role player.
So you mean to tell me, hypothetically speaking, if he gets a jump shot, he can't be the best?
He's not going to get a jump shot.
I'm saying, if he gets a jump shot, even if he gets if he gets a mid-range and a post-up, he can't be the second best player.
But we have to stop saying that. It's been how many years he's been in the league, and he doesn't have any of that.
He's 23, though.
I think I think right now, without the jump shot, he could be the best player on a championship team.
Oh, hell no.
I didn't say that.
But
I didn't say that.
The team needs to be constructed the right way. And it depends. So let's just go crazy here. Let's go crazy here. Let's rewind time to last season. Say instead of trading for Russell Westbrook, the Rockets went out and traded for Ben Simmons. They could have been and they didn't trade Clint Capella. They couldn't have been a championship team.
Oh, hell no. Clint Capella and Ben Simmons.
I think you still need to trade Clint Capella, but I think they would have been better with Ben Simmons.
Okay, they wouldn't have been. They would have lost. They would have lost to LA
if they traded Clint Capella for a big man that could shoot. Because I think that not having a big man hurt them last year. But then again, Ben Simmons could have really helped out defensively with LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
But
I think
Houston lost because they left Westbrook open. They do that to Ben Simmons. Leaving Simmons open.
Yeah, but the problem is Westbrook
is way better than leaving Westbrook open.
Thinks he can shoot. Ben Simmons knows he can't shoot.
But what is Simmons if he's there?
Defensively, he'll literally make your team 10 times better than when you had Westbrook.
No, he is a great defender, but I don't think he can be a championship team.
He's even a better
he can be the best player
five.
on a championship team.
I mean, if you play Ben Simmons,
Ben Simmons could have honestly played the 5. PJ Tucker could have moved to the 4.
He's a better 5 than
James Harden could have ran the point guard.
And what would have happened when he matched up with AD?
He could guard him better than PJ Tucker. I'm sorry.
He could have at least slowed him down.
He would be able to guard LeBron better than any job y'all were doing at the moment.
And when you look at it, when you look at that series, I think personally what killed you most was the possessions that Westbrook wasted, whether it was turnovers or bad shots. He really hurt you guys late in a couple of games that ended up killing.
We say this like we haven't seen Simmons in the playoffs.
That is true.
He's bad in the playoffs.
That's a fair
offensively.
point. That's a fair
offensively.
point.
He's bad offensively.
But again, like Riv said, he's 23 years old. I'm still going to give him I have not given up on Ben Simmons
I think
whatsoever.
I've already seen the player that Ben Simmons is. He's a facilitator, a great defender. He's not an aggressive scorer, and that's fine. But I think they can build around Simmons in the way that you just bring in shooters, and Daryl Morey does this thing. I mean, in 13 seasons as the Rockets GM, he has 8 straight playoff appearances. It could be because of that man, James Harden, fear the beard guy. He has 0
He was there for 13 seasons?
Yeah. Okay. He has 0 losing seasons as a GM in Houston. They were the top 2 offense out of 3 years, 3 times in the past 4 years. And he's not complacent. He's made 77 trades in 13 seasons as a GM. So he knows how to make trades. He's gonna always try to get teams better. And now Philly has Doc Rivers. They just got Sam Cassell. He's their assistant. Daryl Morey's running the operation, so he knows what to do.
I'm not overly optimistic like you because I've seen him fail.
You think that's failing?
What, now winning a championship?
Golden State was in their prime. I don't think just because you don't win a championship that's failing.
Okay.
He's failed James Harden.
Yeah, okay, I want to say that. He's failed James Harden. He hasn't necessarily, let me not say he's necessarily failed. I just think, I don't want to jump to conclusions because they still have Doc Rivers. So I want to see what's his next movements and what he's going to do for the next couple months with Ben Simmons and Embiid before I make my final judgment. But I do want to say this is the first step in a good move. You're bringing in a guy who knows how to make the playoffs, who knows how to make moves. I mean, he's not a Bob Myers, but, he's somebody. So we'll see.
I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said he's not afraid to make moves. He's not complacent. And I think that was the most important thing for the 76ers because, you look at what they've done the past 2 or 3 years, and although they haven't been complacent, some of the moves they made have been very questionable. And I think that a move like giving Tobias Harris the contract that they gave him was kind of, you struck out and, now you're just making a move to make a move's sake. And I don't think that that's something Daryl Morey does. I think he's very calculated in the moves he does make. And one of the worst parts about the 76ers roster is they're in cap hell.
That's what led me. I had a question because he's walked from cap hell in Houston to now cap hell in Philly. So now you got big contracts like Al Horford, Tobias Harris. You got Josh Richardson contract. So what is he gonna do?
That's true, but to be fair,
he was in cap hell in Houston and still found a way to reconstruct the roster. Although it didn't work out with Westbrook, he knows how to operate under those circumstances.
To be fair, Philly has a much better roster.
Yeah.
Much better roster.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think I think you can all agree Al Horford's time in Philly is done.
Yeah.
They have to
find a way. I mean, I know it sounds like a perfect world situation, but if you can get Al Horford and Tobias Harris off the books, you immediately jumpstart your
you have cap for another guy.
Yeah. I'd rather get Al Horford and Josh Richardson and keep Tobias.
The only problem is I just feel like you're paying Tobias Harris way too much for
an
the production
above-average
he's giving
player.
you, and he's going to be on the books until 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you, but you think Simmons can be the best player on a championship team.
You do think
so
that.
Tobias just has to be a role player
That's what he is.
I said he could be the second best player in a championship team.
Nah, you said
no.
first.
We have film. You said first.
If I did say that, it was a mistake because I meant to say I think he could be the second best
Do you
player
think
in a
Embiid
championship
can be the
team.
first or no?
I don't think Embiid could be the best player in the championship team.
I think that right now Embiid could be the second best player on a championship team, but that just means you have two guys that can be the second best guy.
I just don't think centers like that anymore in this league can be the best player in the championship team.
And it goes back to, again, I say this so much in arguments, but I think there's like 7 guys in the league that can be the best player on a championship team, and it's going to be so hard to get one of them. So you have to hope that one of these 2 guys could develop into that, or
Unless he trade for Harden.
maybe you go out and make a move for James Harden, which I think would totally change the landscape of the Eastern Conference.
Embiid, right?
And maybe if
Because they're not
it
accepting
depends,
Tobias.
because I don't have analytics in front of me. Daryl Morey has way more analytics, so if it shows him that the analytics shows Simmons would work better than Harden, he's gonna make the best move to accompany James Harden.
I think that surprisingly, both of those 2 players could work with James Harden in 2 totally different ways. Because Joel Embiid can offer something that he never had in Houston. A big man that can defend really well, but still space the floor and shoot it. And you know Joel Embiid loves to shoot the 3-point shot. And it's sometimes, to a bad extent. And I think that it would be a good fit in that sense. But then Ben Simmons can also be, I don't want to say a smarter Westbrook, but a more self-aware Westbrook where he's not going to waste away possessions on bad shots, but he's going to be able to facilitate and defend better than Westbrook while also adding another great ball handler to that lineup and taking away some of that responsibility from James Harden.
It also depends on Doc Rivers' system, too. I think we're forgetting that. What system is he going to be able to play? Because I think that's going to either benefit or hurt either Ben Simmons or Embiid. So whoever guy they keep is going to have to run a Doc Rivers-like system.
Either one will be better than Brett Brown's.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they'll be better in that aspect.
But will it be better than Mike D'Antoni's?
No, absolutely not.
I really do like the move for Morey, though. I think he was a great candidate for this job. I think they are a team that needs to make some moves. Otherwise, I don't see them going anywhere because this current roster construction, while it can be the ceiling is super high for this group, but I just don't think that they're ever going to hit that ceiling. And I think that they need to make moves in order to make a run for the Eastern Conference. And Daryl Morey, like you said, is not going to be afraid to make those moves.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for a basketball portion of the podcast. Now we're going to head into football, my favorite sport that I like to watch and talk about. So the first topic is, are you in or out on the Steelers being the best team in the league? So, Riv, tell me first, are you in or are you out?
I'm out, only because I think the Chiefs are the best team in the league. But it's not a bad thing. I think the Steelers are definitely top 3. I think they're behind Tampa right now, especially now that they're about to get AB walking in. So I think I have the Chiefs, Tampa, and then the Steelers. I do think the Steelers are very formidable, though, and they can put up a matchup against the Chiefs, but I have the Chiefs as the best team in the league.
How about you, Jack?
You actually stole what I was going to say, and I was going to say it might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion at this point in time because the Chiefs have looked human this year, but we saw what they can do last year, and they only added to that offense this season. And, if you're asking me what I think based on what I've seen this season, the Steelers have been the most impressive team in the league to me. Maybe you could say the Bucs, you could make an argument, but they had a slow start. The Steelers have been really great all year long. Even after losing Devin Bush, I said that was a concern for me when he went down. They didn't miss a beat against a really good Titans team. So they have impressed me more than anybody in the league. I think they've been the surprise of the NFL so far, but I can't bet against the Chiefs, especially come playoff time. They have Patrick Mahomes, who I think is the best quarterback in football, even as well as Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or anybody else has played. Patrick Mahomes is still that dude. That offense only got better from last year, and you saw what they did in the playoffs. Although at times they might not look like the best, when they turn it on, there's nobody in the league that can stop them.
The Steelers aren't the best team. The Chiefs aren't either. But the Steelers aren't either.
I know who you're going to say.
I'm out on the Steelers being the best team in the league. Yeah, I'm going to save it for the power rankings. Who's going to be on there?
I already know who he's going to say.
But I think the most successful team right now in the regular season is the Steelers.
Absolutely.
Well, you can say that because they're the only undefeated team left. They're 6th in defense, 6th in offense in terms of scoring. They're 1st in yards allowed, 3rd against the pass, 1st against the run. Big Ben is having one of his best seasons in a while, and a rookie is leading them in receiving, Chase Claypool. And I think that's they found their number one. I think Claypool can be a number one. And I always thought Juju fit into that number 2 receiver the best. We've seen it last year when he was forced to be the number one. He had a really down season.
He was getting double teamed a lot.
He was hurt. That's what happens when you're number one.
They didn't really have a very formidable number 2.
I mean, it's easy to say Claypool could be the number 1 when now you have 2-3 guys running out there, so you can't double team. You know,
so much better, and Juju.
Yeah, but I just when I see Juju, I don't see a number 1.
Oh, that's understandable.
Claypool, his physical tools, how fast he can run, how tall he is,
I think they're the same
how
age,
strong
too.
he is. I think he can be a true number 1. But the Steelers, they're not the best team. Like I said, they're the most successful. And I also feel like their competition this year has been really, really bad. I mean, the toughest team they faced were the Titans. And the toughest teams they're going to face going forward are the Ravens twice and the Bills, and that's it. So that means you had 4 tough opponents all year. You know, because I don't count the Browns as a tough opponent, especially to the Steelers. I don't.
It's
when
a
we're talking about
game, though.
I don't call them a tough opponent.
I count them as a tough opponent.
The Bengals I don't count as a tough opponent. But let me just go here because I only wrote down the tough opponents that they have. But look, just look at the schedule that they've had so far.
I think we talked about how bad their schedule is.
That's been the biggest knock on them.
Got to win
So
them,
they beat the Giants, not a tough opponent. The Broncos, the Texans, the Eagles, the Browns, the Titans.
What the hell was that supposed to mean?
The Ravens. Now, next up, they got the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Ravens, Washington, Bills, Bengals, Colts, and Browns.
Well, their schedule the whole season is pretty easy, except for the Ravens twice and
Gotta win
the Titans.
Like, I'm not sold on the Colts. I'm not sold on the Browns being a team that can compete with the Steelers because I think the Steelers are an elite team. I think the Colts and Browns are good teams, but when we're talking about good versus elite, I just don't count that as very good competition.
I'll say this, though. They have looked elite regardless of competition. Like you said, I believe they're first against the run, or first against the pass, third against the run.
First against the run, third against the pass.
Which is insane, no matter who you're playing. And you contrast that with a team like we've talked about a bunch, the Buffalo Bills, who haven't played a great schedule, but 2 times they've played the Jets, who are far and away the worst team in football right now, and they haven't impressed me. The Steelers, regardless of their competition, have come out, and I was anti-Steelers at the start of the season. I'll be the first to admit it. They have been super impressive, and I think the most impressive thing has been Ben Roethlisberger coming off Tommy John surgery. I was incredibly nervous. I don't want to say nervous, but I wasn't sure what to expect from him coming off of a majorly impactful elbow surgery. Mm-hmm. He's come out and been having one of the best seasons of his career so far. So, if
we're being honest, the Ravens were supposed to run away with this division. That's what everybody predicted. We thought the Ravens were going to be undefeated. I guess not you, but a lot of people had the Ravens as favorites, not only in their division but in the AFC in general.
Granted, their only loss so far has come to the Chiefs. So, you know,
that's why this game is going to tell me a lot. The Steelers versus the Ravens. Yeah. It really depends on how the Steelers do against them. Maybe they move up a spot. You know, maybe they move up a spot and they get to that first spot.
I do think it's interesting, though, how, and I'm guilty of it myself, and I think a lot of it has to do with the playoffs last year, but we look at the Chiefs, who were so great last year, ended up winning the Super Bowl. They have looked human to start the year, but everybody still feels the same way about them, myself included. But the Ravens, who had a great season last year, granted, they don't perform in the playoffs. They're 5-1 right now. The only team they've lost to is the Chiefs. But I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about them as a real competitor, one of the better teams, one of the possibly top 5 to 10 teams in the league, and almost no one's talking about
Well, they didn't play anybody either, really. They played Texans. They played the Washington Redskins, football team. They played the Bengals, and then they beat us.
And that's the curse of their division.
And both and the Steelers and Ravens both blew out the Browns.
Outside of their division this year, the AFC North.
Yeah, when you're facing the
doesn't have much
NFC
competition.
East, it's gonna be a cakewalk. For being honest,
But
You think it'd be a cakewalk for the Jets since you love to throw that little funny thing in there?
we wouldn't be with 0 wins right now. That's for sure.
You definitely would.
I don't know about that. I will say, though, I am sold on the Steelers. I think they're a top 5, if not top 3 team in football right now. But I still can't say they're the best team in football, and that's no knock on them because I can't have anybody, dethrone the Chiefs unless the Chiefs start to crumple. And I don't think the Chiefs have done that yet, even with a loss.
The team we're going to talk about next is the Lions. I don't know if you guys saw the game on Sunday, but the Lions got extremely lucky to win that game. Todd Gurley was supposed to not score. There's video of Matt Ryan telling him not to score. And Todd Gurley scores. You can debate on whether that was on purpose or by accident. If you're asking me, I thought that was kind of on purpose because he should have dropped. You ran about 6 more yards to score that touchdown.
I will say I felt the same way at first. I saw an angle of it, though, from the sideline.
That somebody pushed him.
He got pushed, so maybe he did lose his balance, but
it looked like he did it on purpose, but okay. The Lions, with under a minute left, Matthew Stafford, he's clutch. He threw a touchdown to T.J. Hawkinson. Matt Prater made the game-winning field goal, the extra point, and they won a game. The Lions usually lose these type of games, but the Falcons are so cursed that they ended up losing it. They're now sitting at 3-3, and a lot of people are wondering, are they going to make the playoffs? Can they make a playoff push right now? They just traded for Everson Griffin.
No.
So you don't think they have a chance at all?
I'm looking. The teams in front of them: Green Bay, Seattle, Tampa, Chicago, Arizona, the Rams, Saints, Niners, and then, of course, my division.
And considering the wild card, you're almost guaranteed to get 2 playoff spots out of the NFC West. So
yeah, if they have to catch up to somebody there, that's first things first. I mean, in my opinion,
and the Niners are starting to get healthy, and they're starting to win.
Yeah, I think they are healthy now.
All 4 of the teams in that
except
division.
Except for Raheem Mostert.
Yeah,
all 4 of those teams in that division are playoff-worthy teams.
With me, I love the Lions. I love Matt Stafford. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks.
It's not looking too good for them.
But I think they're one of the better teams in football in terms of talent. Their coaching just isn't there.
Was it Matt Patricia?
They do great in the first half. For some reason, when they get a lead, Matt Patricia goes into this soft zone, and then he runs the ball more on first downs, and they end up losing in the second half. But the Detroit Lions, they're 3-3, and I feel like they could easily be 4-2 or 5-1 right now. Every single game that they've played, they've had a double-digit lead in that game against the Saints, against Green Bay. They should have beat Chicago if DeAndre Swift didn't drop that pass. They should be 4-2, and I feel like that's a common story with the Lions. Last year, the same thing. They should have been 4-1 or started out. They could have realistically started out 5-0. I always say this about the Lions, but it just rings true. They have the talent to compete, and they show it every single week that they can compete with any single team. But when I look at the schedule, I just don't see that they can get up to 9 or 10 wins, which I think is what they're going to need in order to make the playoffs.
And with this gauntlet NFC, because the NFC is deep, I just don't see and that's not a knock on Detroit to not make the playoffs. They're a talented team, like you said. And
if they were in the NFC East, they would make it.
Yeah, probably because they're talented and they were a little banged up in the beginning of the season too. But looking at the teams that are ahead of them, I just don't see. With the Niners getting rolling, Saints are starting to get healthy. You got the Rams, Arizona's starting to win, Chicago's still in the race. And Tampa Bay is starting to get healthy. So I just don't see them catching up to anybody.
It's not. Yeah, I agree. Sorry for cutting you off, but even the teams that they're gonna face, the Colts, they're a good team.
It's not a walking game.
The Bears, they're a good team. The Packers, the Titans. The Bucks, those are 5 hard games.
Very hard.
If you lose those 5, that's 8 losses.
You lose
right
2
there.
of them, you're gonna be stuck.
And I was gonna say, I think that what's really going to come back to kill them is DeAndre Swift not catching that pass. Because if you tell me they're 4-2 right now,
they're in front of San Fran.
I think that Indianapolis, Minnesota, Washington, Carolina, Houston, and Minnesota again are all games
they can
I shouldn't say very easily win,
I think
but they
can
can easily
Chicago.
win those
I
games.
think against Washington and the Vikings twice and the Texans, they should. They're favored in
winnable
those
games. Yeah, and
the
then
Panthers is probably a toss-up.
And then the Panthers.
Mind you, the Panthers
and
are
the
right
Colts.
behind them,
The
too.
Panthers and the Colts, those would be tough games, but I think that they're evenly matched. They're games they should be right in.
And the Bears as well.
Absolutely.
But even the Bears, though, I think the Bears are
Well,
I
the Lions
give
beat
the
them
Bears
with,
a slight.
what, Mitch?
No, the Lions
they
almost
lost
beat them.
that game.
I mean, they lost the game and Mitch was playing, right?
Yeah, but the thing about it is that when you look at the Bears, it's not even Mitch or Foles, even though I think Foles is better. It's at this point, it's kind of Matt Nagy's play calling that's really hurting them.
And they have a really great defensive unit there. That's going to be a December matchup in Chicago, always a tough place to play.
Cold.
A divisional matchup, going to be a dogfight. And then after that, you have Green Bay, Tennessee, Tampa Bay. So right now, I'll say I could see them getting to 9 wins. And if you had given them that 10th win over the Bears, I think 10 wins could have been enough, especially if you had beaten the Bears once and maybe could clinch that tiebreaker between those two. You would have a real shot, but I think that Bears loss is really going to hurt them down the stretch. Even if they rattle off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins in a row here, then you get Chicago, Green Bay, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, and finish off with Minnesota. But in that tough stretch, you're going to have to pull off 1, maybe even 2 upsets to be a playoff team. And with, like you said, Matt Patricia coaching, I liked him to start, but he really hasn't improved at all as a head coach. I don't think he's the right guy for the job.
And players don't like him.
Exactly.
The one thing I'll give to Matt Patricia, and this is I think that he is a bad coach, but I don't think he's as bad as Lions fans make it out to be. Yeah. Because when I have a head coach in Adam Gase, because we're both Jets fans, we can't even move the ball. We can't even move the ball.
At least they get leads.
Detroit, at least they're competitive. They lose in heartbreaking fashion, but
they're competitive.
They are there.
Yeah.
We are not there at all.
They just can't hang on to a lead, which I think is going to really hurt them come those tough games. They're going to have to pull off an upset because all those teams have a potent offense, and you're going to have to find a way to stop it. Man. So I think they have playoff talent. What hurts them most is the rest of the league has been, or the rest of their conference, I should say, has been so good this year that they would have to be realistically a 10-win team to find the playoff spot, and they would really have to pull off some surprises to get to that.
That might not even be enough.
Exactly.
A move that happened.
So I love my division, man.
A move that happened is Dez Bryant signed with the Ravens officially. He was on a practice squad, but now they officially signed him. I think he started practicing with them already. I saw pictures of it today.
He's been practicing with Lamar all summer.
So how much of a difference do you think Dez Bryant is going to make for the Ravens?
I think it just depends on how is he going to come back. He hasn't played football in, damn near 2 years?
If you're – give me your opinion. Do you think that he's going to come back at least like his old self? Or can he come back and be a number 2 wide receiver? That's a better question.
Okay.
His number 1 is a little bit of a stretch at this point in his career.
Ooh. You look at his numbers, and the last time he played in 2017 with the Cowboys, he put up 6 touchdowns, 838 yards on 69 receptions. That's really good production from a wide receiver. And at 31 years old, not having played in the league for 3 years, I just don't know if he can get back to that. It's a really tough league. And it changes a lot.
You got to remember the type of receiver he is too. The guy to go get it, the big time play receiver. So
it's taxing on your body.
It's a good gamble.
Of the league for a while.
I think it's a good gamble.
Yeah, it was a great move for the Ravens because realistically, there's no harm done if he doesn't pan out, and if he does, you have yourself a receiver and a receiving core where really nobody's stood out so far this year. I think it was a low risk, high reward move for them. But I just don't know if he could pan out. I would rather take a chance on Antonio Brown than him.
I'm going to bet my house. I'm going to put the money on it, and I'm going to say he's going to thrive.
I think this move just smells desperation out of the Ravens. They know they don't have a receiver. They know they can't trade for anybody. Well, they probably can, but they haven't. And that's the weakest position on their roster. When you look at their secondary, their linebackers, their defensive line, offensive line, tight ends, running backs, quarterback, wide receiver is the only position that they desperately need. Hollywood Brown hasn't been that guy worthy of how high they picked him. And this move was a desperation move. Des Bryant hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiving season since 2014. And in 2010, when he was coming out of the draft, he ran a 4.52 40-yard dash. So he isn't a burner. He isn't really fast. So it's 10 years later now. He hasn't played in 3 years. He tore his Achilles, I think, in New Orleans
with the Saints
before he got to play. After a torn Achilles, after having these injuries, not being a number one since 2014, and when you said 2017 he had 800 yards, that was a really up and down season. I remember that season.
With Tony Romo?
Nah, that was with Dak.
Oh, that was Dak.
That was Dak's rookie year, I believe. That season, there was a lot of conflict between him and Dak because Dez kind of thought he was better than he was.
Was that the catch that year?
I'm not sure, but I know that. Wait, what catch you talking about?
Against Green Bay?
Nah, that wasn't it. That was with Romo.
Okay.
But Dez hasn't been. He hasn't been a number one since 2014. You can say he was barely a number two in 2017, and he's coming off of injuries in 2020. The game has completely changed. He can't burn anybody. I would not bet on Des Bryant.
Yeah, and he was never a burner. And you look at this Ravens offense that is so run and gun, and
they have burners.
Yeah, predicated on fast moving and getting up and down the field. And Des Bryant is not that.
Yeah, Willie Snead, Hollywood Brown, Devin Duvernay. They have guys that are really fast.
And I just don't see where Des fits in that system. Like you said, though, it's not a bad gamble because if he doesn't work out, there's no harm done to you. But I like you said, I wouldn't bet on it. And another thing that you mentioned is even in Dallas towards the end, there was a lot of conflict because I think that he had a little bit of an inflated ego based on his first couple of years. And he didn't really keep up that production, but he still wanted to be treated like that number one guy. And I wonder if that's not going to happen here. If he starts to play well, is it going to be a situation like we talked about last week, Odell in Cleveland, where Lamar Jackson is going to feel like he has to force feed the ball to Des Bryant? Maybe not, but it's another thing to look out for in a lot of the negatives that stack up on the paper.
In my opinion, it's just they just got Dez maybe for jump ball situations in the goal line, some goal line fades. But I don't really see Des Bryant really making much of an impact. If he does, then, I hope he does and he proves me wrong. But I just don't see it because it's been so long. Maybe he has an Alden Smith type comeback where he's just, he hasn't played in X amount of years and he's just good off the bat. But Alden Smith got out of the league because of off the field problems. Dez, it was a combination of ego, but also he got injured and never really got to get another opportunity.
I was excited for him in New Orleans when he got that contract, and I thought he would have fit really well with the Saints that year in a nice receiving core.
Then he tore his Achilles.
And I feel like that was kind of his last chance to really make something happen.
Mm-hmm. Another move that happened, it just happened today. Carlos Dunlap got traded to Seattle. They needed a move like this. They needed a pass rusher because they don't have one. Right now, they're 16th in pass rush win rate and they're 29th in pressure rate. So they don't get after the quarterback at all. Against Arizona, they had 0 sacks and they had no cube quarterback hits. And that's just bad production out of that group. So how much better do you think Carlos Dunlap is going to make this Seattle Seahawks defense?
What you said their number was at 16?
They're 16th in pass rush win rate and they're 29th in pressure rate.
I think he moves them to 27th in pressure rate, like 15th or 14th. And so I don't think he makes that big gap that they need him to, but I think it'll help a little bit.
I'll say this. He alone might not make that big gap, but you get him on the field, you get Jamal Adams back, and I think that the defense gets good enough that you can be you weren't high on them as Super Bowl contenders in the last episode.
Yeah, you did. I watched that. You said that. You kept talking about Tampa. That's all I kept
Tampa,
hearing you talking about.
Tampa's that team.
I thought that even just getting Jamal Adams back could make them a legit Super Bowl contender. Bringing in Carlos Dunlap gives you another player on that defense that can really change the game, depending on what he is when he comes here. Is he going to be the player that we know he can be, or is he going to be the player that we've seen in Cincinnati so far this year that hasn't really lived up to what a lot of people hoped he would be? If he can hit that potential, again, the Seahawks aren't going to have a top 5 defense, might not even have a top 10 defense, but I think the defense can be solid enough that with the offense being as prolific as it is, they can be a Super Bowl contender.
I wasn't high on Seattle last episode, and I'm definitely not high on them after this move either. I think it was just a whatever move. I mean, Carlos Dunlap, if Jamal Adams is there, I don't think their defense can be good enough still, because the reason they get torched so much is because they have no pass rush. Carlos Dunlap has 1 sack this year. He's a career 7 to 9 sack guy. He's not an elite player. He's not a game-changing player. And if you have guys on that defensive line that aren't very good, and now you add in a good player that can be great on some nights, it's still not doing much because they can probably key in on him and double him. They need to add another pass rusher. And there's some on the market right now. Takarius McKinley's one of them in Atlanta, former first-round pick that they can add. But I don't think Carlos Dunlap really adds anything that's going to make them even a mediocre defense going forward. Like, this isn't what he once was. This isn't a career achievement award, because he leads the Bengals all time in sacks.
Wow.
He leads them all time in sacks, but that's not him now. What are you getting in 2020? You're not getting a player that is a great to an elite player that's going to change your defense.
You're getting a player that's better than every guy you got on your D-line right now. So it's a plus nonetheless. I mean, it's probably not going to do much in a sense, and if you're still going to be all on Russell to do what he needs to do to get them a win down the stretch, but still, it's an okay move nonetheless.
I mean, in 2019, he was tied for 3rd with a PFF grade of 89.7.
Dunlap?
Yep. He had an 89 run defense grade and a 77.8 pass rush grade. So he's more of a run defender than he is a pass rusher, and at this point, they need both.
Yeah.
So even if they could get him stopping the run as good as he's done, then they'll have something. But I don't think it moves them into top 15 defense. Maybe they'll be like the 20th ranked defense now, or if they have Jamal and him and everybody healthy, like the 20th ranked defense. But I don't see them being a top 15 ranked defense.
Let me ask you something, and this can kind of segue to our next segment a little bit. But a guy whose name has been rumored in maybe some moves from New England, arguably the best cornerback in the league, Stephon Gilmore. If they can go out and get him, what do you think about this defense?
Woof. Woof.
Well, the
woof,
defense
woof, woof.
would get better, but I think that move is super unrealistic.
Wait, hold on. I have a question. You said that Tampa would destroy Seattle. That's what you said.
They would.
And you said because Tampa's defense is great, right?
And their offense is great as well.
Okay.
It's both.
Is Tampa's defense this year better than the Niners' defense last year?
It's really close.
Did you know in the 2 meetings that they faced Russell Wilson, they split it, and the last one they lost because the Russell Wilson lost because they stopped him at the goal line, right?
Okay.
So what makes you think that Tampa's just gonna outright destroy Seattle when they play? Like,
can Seattle stop Tampa's offense? Can Seattle keep up with Tampa? If they're
offensively,
I definitely think they can.
If they're going score for score, Tampa Bay scoring fast. Can Seattle do the same thing on that elite defense? I don't think they can.
I don't think that Tampa could stop Russell Wilson.
I think they can.
That's a bold bet.
Yeah,
I think
if you saying the Bucs defense is probably around the same as the Niners defense last year, which was legendary, we can all agree it was legendary. And Russell Wilson put up probably 2 of the best games that they played last year against them. With probably his team was probably worse last year than it was this year. Then that's a pretty bold team.
I don't think Seattle's team was worse last year.
I think so.
Defensively, no way.
I think offensively because everybody's better this year than they were last year.
I don't think everybody's better this year. I just think they've been put in a different system. because last year they were much more run oriented.
That would also make them better though than now
but
playing
also
to their strengths.
But also last year when they're much more run oriented, they get to chew the clock more. They don't put so much pressure on their offense or Russell Wilson to make a play every single drive.
Yeah, tomato.
So that's why I don't think they're necessarily better. The only addition that they've got is Damian Lewis out of LSU and Greg Olsen. And Greg Olsen, he's good, but he's not.
It's not about DK's just better than last year. Yeah, it's just about the players just got better. So I think that was a little disrespectful to Russell Wilson, what you said. And I was watching, and I was just disgusted.
They're gonna get destroyed because they can't keep up with Tampa. They can't, and you're gonna see it.
Yeah,
Seattle's going to disappoint everybody.
I think
Russell's gonna prove you wrong.
I think that.
And I'm not saying Seattle's going to win.
Yeah, I think you can say...
How is he going to prove me wrong?
What
would he do that proves me wrong?
Not get destroyed?
I think you could say the Bucs can and should beat the Seahawks, but to say they're going to get destroyed,
they'll get embarrassed.
I think is a major stretch.
I said embarrassed, and they will get embarrassed. And I'm not saying Russell Wilson's going to get embarrassed. I'm saying the Seahawks.
Well, if the Seahawks get embarrassed, Russell Wilson gets embarrassed.
Not really, because the Seahawks defense can get embarrassed and put up and give up a bunch of points, and Wilson could do the best he can, but at the end of the day, they lose.
I just don't know why you're so confident that this Bucs defense can stop the Seahawks offense. Nobody's been able to do it yet.
Because their personnel is amazing, and they have a great defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles. And I would not bet against a Todd Bowles-led defense.
I'm not betting against a Russell Wilson-led offense.
Which is more proven.
Brian Schottenheimer calling the plays. You could do what you want. But I just know that Tampa is the best team in the NFC right now. We're going to talk about the trade deadline.
I can't wait to get the NFL power.
What team should we make it? What team should make a move at the deadline, and who should they trade for? Riv, I want to hear what team you have first and the player that they should trade first.
Why you always want to hear me?
Because it's natural. It's natural instinct. The person to your right of you, you're more inclined to.
Is it really?
I mean, you're more inclined to look to the right side of your screen.
So what if you're a lefty?
I think it's still right.
Wow. Eagles, obviously Eagles. I think we need to make an addition for a receiver. We need to get Alshon Jeffrey off the books. That's what I think we need. I think we need to go for a veteran receiver, somebody who can take the top off, maybe somebody who can stay healthy because Alshon and Deshaun Jackson have not been healthy. And that's about it. That's the only team I've been thinking about for like 2 days.
I think that one move I've heard, through the grapevine, heard some people talking about. I know the Texans are looking to deal some guys, and one team that I think that should be hitting their phone is the Green Bay Packers. If Will Fuller is available, I think he could add another dimension to that offense because outside of Devontae Adams, especially missing Aaron Jones, I heard he might be back this week, but if he doesn't come back the same, Devontae Adams is the only weapon they have in that entire offense. Beyond
Adam Lazard is pretty good.
He's been solid, but he's been a little inconsistent, and I think that adding Will Fuller would just give another dimension to that offense and make them very difficult to stop, especially when you look at the NFC, a lot of games that they're going to have to play in come playoff time. The Seattle Seahawks, it'll be a shootout. So if you can add weapons to that offense, I'm sure the asking price would not be that high for Will Fuller. I think that would be a solid move for them.
I was going to say the same thing. I think Will Fuller fits the Packers. And they need to make a move for a receiver since they didn't draft one, and that's something they should have done.
It was a mistake.
Yeah, it was a mistake. But I think if you have a combination of Will Fuller, Devontae Adams, Adam Lazard, you can kind of line up Devontae in the slot and have Fuller go deep on some goals.
Absolutely.
And Adam Lazard as well.
That's dangerous.
Adam Lazard's pretty good at jump balls. And he's been injured, so he has to come back first. But they also got this other guy, Tunyon, who's a pretty good tight end. He's been emerging as well. So they just need to add something to their offense because at this point, they can't really add anything to their defense. They're most vulnerable against the run. Yeah. And I don't think there's any linebacker that's going to fix that can come to Green Bay and fix that instantly. But you can definitely improve your offensive firepower so you can put up points with the best of them. And I think that's what they're missing.
I would love to see Will Fuller going deep with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him in an offensive line, which is something that Deshaun Watson has lacked pretty much his whole time there in Houston. So, and that's really what Will Fuller is. He's a burner. So if you can get him some time to run a route downfield and have Aaron Rodgers, one of the best deep ball throwers maybe ever, throwing the football to him, and then you have Devontae Adams as, a release on some of those routes, that would be scary.
I mean, the Texans are shopping everybody. They're shopping Kenny Stills.
J.J. Watt.
They've been reports about Brandon Cooks. J.J. Watt is one of them. So if the Packers could get any of these guys, a Cooks, Fuller, Stills,
I think Cooks
maybe
would be really good.
maybe a John Ross from Cincinnati and see what he can do. Dante Pettis from the 49ers, Alshon Jeffrey maybe,
Yeah,
Have him.
AJ Green,
and I think
something like that.
the Eagles should also be looking at a bunch of those guys too, because like you mentioned, they're weak at receiver, and any of those guys would help out in that
They're
receiving
pretty
corps.
weak at quarterback too. You seen that guy? But the thing about it is I think the Packers, just like the Patriots, they should be looking to get a wide receiver because the Patriots need to help out Cam. Cam is alone right now there. They have no weapons. They need somebody to pair with Edelman.
Do you think that that's the direction they're going to go in?
I'm not sure if they are, and I would say no, but I think that they should.
Because I can see them being sellers more than I can see them being buyers at this deadline.
I could see it too. I mean, the deadline, when does it end? It ends Tuesday or Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
4 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd.
But like I said as well, I think another move it would be to Karis McKinley to the Seahawks. If you get
anything for that Seahawks defense, really.
if you get McKinley and Carlos Dunlap, then I'll say, I'll take back my statement about the Seahawks getting embarrassed. But
You're gonna eat your words sooner than later.
And
nah, trust me, I've been right about Carson Wentz so far. I'm not worried about this.
the
What have you
Falcons,
been right about?
What's your record?
What were you right about though? I don't. What did you like? What are you
Well,
right
I
about?
remember when I said Dak was better, which he is. Look at how much the Cowboys are collapsing right now without him.
It's not like they were winning with him either.
When Wentz goes
Wait,
down, Nick
wait,
Foles
wait.
wins.
That was like 3 years ago, bro. What happened last year?
What happened last year with what?
When Dak played last year, and so did Wentz.
No, yeah, they lost.
Oh,
But right now they look like the worst team in the NFL.
wait, but
one of
Dak
the
was
worst
losing
teams.
when he was playing though. It's not like he was winning; he was losing too. You know that, right?
But he is better than Carson Wentz.
But don't make it seem like he was winning when they were losing regardless. Like
He has more wins than Wentz, and he's actually percentage-wise better as well.
he's played more games too, though.
it's the weekly.
And less interceptions. He has less interceptions in more games as well.
It's the
Good for
weekly Joel and Riv Eagles bickering.
He has less interceptions, more games than who? Oh, you talking about this year alone?
Dak Prescott has less interceptions than Carson Wentz for his career.
Oh, but I get what you're saying. Okay.
To your point, bringing it back to this subject, the Falcons are sitting Takk McKinley on Thursday against the Panthers.
They got to plan to trade him then, I guess so.
I'm sure there's no other reason.
And he's a rental because he's on his last year of his rookie contract. So they're not going to pay him long-term, any team that gets him. So I'd do it. And I don't think it costs too much to get him as well. And he has huge potential.
Not at all.
And the Seahawks are well beyond going for it. Like, they are all in on this team. You could see, in the Jamal Adams trade alone, look at how much they gave up for him.
They better be, because Tampa's going to be a rude awakening for them if they come in with that roster. We're going to go on to our last segment of the show. NFL Power Rankings Week 8. We're not going to name all 32 teams. We're just going to name our top 10 teams. Each of us are going to go.
We're starting at 10, right?
Yeah, starting at 10, going to 1.
Drum roll, please.
So my first team is number 10. I have the Buffalo Bills at number 10.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
Buffalo Bills are my 10th ranked team. I feel like they haven't been impressive. They haven't really faced great competition when they have against the Titans and Chiefs. They didn't look so good against the Jets this past week. It wasn't an impressive win, so I have the Bills at 10. Then at 9, I have the 49ers.
Oh, wait, you're going like that.
I mean, we can go either way. It doesn't matter to me.
Oh, because I don't want to forget everything you said when you go and then I go, because I'm going to forget everything you said if you go 10 now.
I'm writing down what you said.
That's why I'm going it like this, because I feel like I'll do mine first, you'll do yours, and then you'll do yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Then my next team, number 9, I have the 49ers, number 9. They're finally getting healthy. Their win over the Pats was impressive. Debo's back. Brandon Ayuk looks impressive. And even without Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson stepped in, and he's playing really well, so I have them at 9. Number 8 is the Cardinals. Their win over Seattle, I think, placed them into the top 10. Kyler Murray looks phenomenal. Their defense looks really good as well, and that's why I have them at 8. Titans are at 7. Their loss to the Steelers, coupled in with their defense, who haven't been so impressive, I have them at the 10, 9, 8, and 7 spot. For the 6th spot, I have the Packers. Their loss to Tampa really moved them down. Their win over the Texans, it wasn't impressive. I mean, it was impressive to an extent, but this didn't move them up the list for me, and it's not going to move them down either. So then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My 5th team is the Seattle Seahawks because they lost to Arizona. They still don't have a defense. They're at 5 because I still love and trust Russell Wilson to carry the load and finish out the season strong. Then at number 4, I have the Ravens. I just feel like the Ravens are super vulnerable when they can't get the run going. When they start facing these better teams like the Steelers, which I'm predicting the Steelers to win that game, they can't win because they have to play from behind, and that's not Lamar Jackson's strength. And I don't think they can beat any of these top teams I have ahead of them. For number 3, I have the Steelers. Their win over the Titans was impressive. They're the only undefeated team left, and the Steelers have a top 10 offense and defense in the league. Number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat Baltimore. Who else did they beat? They beat the Bills. They've had some impressive wins. They're also the reigning Super Bowl champion. That's why I have them at 2. But nobody can beat this first team. My number 1 team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After acquiring Antonio Brown, they are by far the best team, the number 1 team in the NFL. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, who's coming into his own, Ronald Jones, Rojo, Tom Brady, AB, a top 5 defense. It's a no-brainer that this team is the best team in the NFL and the best team by far in the NFC.
That was cool. It's a pretty cool list. It's wrong, but it's a cool list. Jack, you ready or you want me to?
You go.
So I did this off like just last week, so excuse me. But number 10, I got your fans, your lover boys. I have the Titans at 10. I feel like that L, the Bills was competition, but that was their first real competition at the top of the AFC, and they failed. They lost. Number 9, I'm going to go with the Cards. I feel like they jumped into the top 10 with a very impressive win against the Seattle Seahawks. 8, I'm going to go with the Saints. I feel like they've just been treading on good water. They've been getting a couple wins, getting healthy, getting back on track. 7, I have the Seahawks. They dropped a little bit with that loss against the Cardinals. 6, I'm going with Green Bay. Green Bay got a solid win against a pretty bad team, but nonetheless, a win is a win. 5, that's where I put Baltimore. I have Baltimore at 5. Oh, wait. No. Pardon me. Run that back. 5 is the Seahawks. 5 is the Seahawks. Pardon me. 6. Yeah, 5 is the Seahawks. Pardon me. 4, I have the Ravens. Pardon me. 4 is the Ravens. I feel like they've been also treading on good water, just getting wins, getting back to it. 3, like we said before, I have the Steelers. I feel like they're undefeated, but they didn't really play anybody yet other than the Titans, and they almost blew that game. Number 2, I don't know what's wrong with you. That's where I have your Bucks. They are the second best team in the league. You like to go high on their defense. They haven't, when they played competition, they've lost twice. So I don't see
Against who? The Bears?
And the Saints.
And the Saints?
Yeah.
You don't think the Raiders are probably as good as the Bears?
Didn't you just say when they play? Okay, all right. I don't think the Raiders are that great. I mean, we can cancel both of them teams out, and they beat the Packers and they lost to the Saints, so they're 1-1.
They dominated the Packers.
Yeah, and they
the
lost
team
to
that
the
you have
Saints.
in your top 10, and the Bears aren't in your top 10. So the
Bears
Packers aren't competition?
I mean, I had the Bears as competition until you tried to jump the Raiders in there.
But you said 0-2. But wouldn't the Packers be competition?
That's a good point. You're right. That's a good point. So 1 and 2. I'm sorry. Oh,
and dominated.
They dominated, lost twice, and that defense has locked up the Broncos and the pretty weak teams. Good job. They let the Chargers score 41 of them. The number 1 team in the league, and it's still that guy, Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl winning team, the Chiefs. I have them at number 1. They're going to be number 1 for a very long time until somebody could take them off the top. So that's my list.
This is tough for me, and I'm glad we didn't go to 15 because I almost wish we went to 15 because the 10th spot was very, very hard for me. And I almost debated between like 4 teams at 10. So I want to first give an honorable mention spot shared by 2 teams, the Rams and the Bears. They were 2 teams I was debating on top 10. I think they could easily be considered top 10. And then at number 10, I have 2 teams that I think could either be flip-flopped, the Saints and the Bills. Both of them, although I think they have the potential to be top 5 teams in the league, haven't shown that so far this season. They've been a little bit disappointing, but at any point, I think that either of those teams could be a top 5 team in the league. At 9, I'm going to go Niners. I think they're getting back healthy, and you saw last year healthy. Although they're a different team, last year healthy, they were a Super Bowl contender. And when they have been healthy this season, they've looked really good. So getting them back healthy, I think the biggest thing against them is their division. Number 8, I have the Cardinals, a huge win against the Seahawks. I was really impressed with them. They've been up and down like a seesaw ride at the start of the season, but I'm high on Kyler Murray. I said at the beginning of the year, I know Joel agreed with me. I think they're going to be a playoff team. Coming in at 7, I have the Titans. I'm still high on them. I took them down a few notches after the loss to the Steelers, which even myself, I might have been a little bit unfair with how much I knocked them back. I'm still super high on them. I really like their defense. I love Mike Vrabel as a coach, and Tannehill has been having an MVP-esque campaign, but that loss really hurt them in my eyes, at least in the eyes of my power rankings, I should say. Number 6, I have the Ravens, a team that, again, I was talking about them before, and I almost wish I had put them higher on this list, but it's just where they fell when I was ranking them. I still think they're one of the best teams in the league. You know what they are. Come playoff time, it's going to be a question mark, just like it was last year. Can they answer the challenge this year? And like many other teams, we're going to find out a lot about them in the coming weeks. But I'm still high on them. I love Lamar Jackson. I can't understand all the hate he gets. I can understand it, but I think it's ridiculous. I have them at 6. Then for my top 5, I have the Packers at 5. If they can add a weapon at the deadline, I think they will be already. I think they're serious Super Bowl contenders. If they can add a weapon at the deadline, I think they can really compete for a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers looked terrific. Number 4, I have the Seahawks. I know you've knocked them a lot for their defense, and while I don't think their defense is there yet, I do give them credit for the fact that they're missing Jamal Adams, who is a cornerstone of that defense right now. Russell Wilson has been incredible. That offense has been really great all season long, and it was a tough loss to the Cardinals, a really good team so far this season. That's why I didn't knock them down too far. Number 3, and I debated on these top 3 teams, but I ended up deciding on placing them on where I think they're actually at, not based on what I've seen so far this season. So I have the Steelers at 3.
Okay, fair assessment.
If we were ranking it based on who's had the best season so far, I would have the Steelers at 1. Steelers at 3, great defensive unit. Ben Roethlisberger has proven me totally wrong, and they have been the most impressive team this season. I just still can't put them ahead of, especially the team at number 1 and the team at number 2. I fear more than the Steelers come playoff time. At number 2, I gotta have the Bucks.
Oh my God.
You said it all about them. A great defensive unit. They're probably the most well-rounded team in football. Tom Brady has been proving all the haters wrong. He's been Tom Brady, the GOAT. There's not much else to say about it. And if Antonio Brown can come on to the field and actually make an impact, I might change my mind about these rankings because he's an all-pro talent. I just don't know if he can do that. So right now I'm going to keep them at 2. And at number 1, I have the Chiefs. Like I said at the beginning of the show, they were the Super Bowl champs last year. Patrick Mahomes is that dude. He's the best quarterback in football. Their offense is out of this world. I don't know any team in football that can stop them. And until they give me a reason to move them out of this spot, I'm going to keep them at number 1.
They can't be stopped, man.
But
The Bucks,
again, they're
going to
what?
stop them.
I will say this. There are even some picks that I was just reading off, and I was like, man, I don't know about that. It was very hard to rank these teams.
There are some teams that are interchangeable. I mean, for me, the notable teams I left off were the Bears, the Saints, the the Browns, and Colts.
Out of your top 10?
Yeah, I left them out of my top 10.
You left the Saints out of your top 10.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, have you seen them play this year? I don't think they're super impressive.
I think they're right in that.
I think
Bills
they're not
category.
at their. I think they're not at their peak, and yet they're still 5-2. Well, 4-2.
What's their peak?
Top 5 team in the league. Easily.
I don't think that's their peak.
No, I think they're a top 5 team in the league.
I think they could be a top 5.
They're definitely better than the Packers at their peak.
I don't think so.
Well, they beat your boys, so
Week 1, what a fluke win. That was the
How was
Bucks.
it a fluke win if you thought the Bucks were gonna win?
It was a fluke win because
Oh,
that was
cut
the
it out.
Bucks' first time together, first time on the
And you
field
picked the Bucks to win.
in a game.
And you picked the Bucks to win.
Let me ask
Because
this
I believe in
question:
Brady.
How many?
You
of
thought Tom Brady didn't have any arm strength left. So.
How many of these teams do you think can actually compete for a title this season?
5.
3.
I'm saying, and I'll be generous.
It's between
here.
the Bucks, Chiefs, and the Steelers for me. I don't see the Ravens beating the Steelers, and I don't see any team in the NFC beating the Tampa Bay Bucks in the playoffs. I don't see that. And in the AFC, I don't see any team that can beat the Chiefs or the Steelers come playoff time. That's just my opinion.
I'm gonna say, in my mind, there's 5 definite competitors for a Super Bowl this year. You could stretch the list if you really wanted to be generous and say 7.
Who's your 5?
I have Chiefs, Bucks, Steelers, Seahawks, Packers, and then you could make an argument. If you said Ravens or Titans, I wouldn't call you crazy.
You would put the Packers over the Ravens?
Personally, right now,
I
based
had-
on what I've
okay.
seen, only because the Packers have played some better competition this year and proven themselves more.
Okay.
Right now,
I had Chiefs, Bucks, Steelers, Ravens. Those are my 4.
The Ravens, wow.
but you know what I will say I'll say 6 because the Ravens are in the AFC, and I think the AFC outside of the Chiefs is weaker than the NFC. It won't
Yeah.
be as much of a dogfight. All they have to do, in my opinion, is get through either the Steelers or the Chiefs,
I
depending
think
on
the
how the
NFC.
bracket
I
falls.
think the NFC is weaker than the AFC.
Really.
Yeah, when you look at the NFC, a lot of the teams that are at the top have really major weaknesses. The Packers, they can't stop the run.
I think
The
but they're
Seahawks-
deeper, though. The
the
NFC is a
Seahawks-
deeper conference.
The Seahawks, they can't play defense to save their life. What other teams you have on there? The Cardinals or the 49ers, or you want to put the Saints? Like
Rams.
These teams have weaknesses. I think the Bucks are the most well-rounded team. When you talk about the AFC, you have teams who have much less weaknesses. The Steelers, the Chiefs, even the Ravens to an extent. The only weakness on their team is at a wide receiver. So between and then when you get to like the other teams like the Titans, Bills, and stuff like that, it's much closer. But in terms of the NFC, I think it's a one-team race.
I don't know. I think
And
NFC.
Tampa's going to the
I think
Super Bowl.
NFC. We could run 8, 9 deep teams
Yeah,
down that can make the playoffs.
When you look
No,
at it,
yeah, but that can make the playoffs is different than competing for a Super Bowl.
Well, I'm saying the
I
NFC.
think the only team that can make the Super Bowl in the
I-
NFC is the Buccaneers.
I think
Well,
what Riv is getting at
You're a little
is that
biased towards.
there
it,
is
bro.
8 or 9 teams in the NFC that can really give you a competition in a playoff game. And when you look at the AFC, where the Ravens sit right now, the only 2 teams that I would have ahead of them in the AFC are the Steelers and the Chiefs. You could make an argument for the Titans. I wouldn't at this point in time.
but they beat the Ravens,
Who?
the Titans.
When? Oh, you talking about last year?
Last year. Personally,
I'm just looking. I wouldn't like. I know everybody likes the Dolphins. Like I know you guys do, but I wouldn't put if they make the playoffs. I don't believe in them to win that game. Like and
Are
that
the Dolphins pick like?
But
Are
they
they in
sit.
the
They
playoffs
sit
right
where
now?
the Niners would sit in the NFC, and I think the Niners, if they are healthy and they walk into it, they can win a playoff game. That's what I'm saying. The NFC runs deep. Like they're a deeper conference than the AFC. I think I get what you're saying. AFC top heavy. Those 3 teams. Yeah, no weakness. NFC is like the Bucks are the only team with no weakness, real. But I think if talk about conference for conference, who's deeper? I think the NFC runs deeper, better teams than the AFC.
Yeah, right now when you look at the NFC, in the 7, 8, 9, 10 is Rams, Saints, 49ers, Lions. And when you look at the AFC, it's Colts, Dolphins, Raiders, Chargers. So I just think the NFC is deeper in terms of teams that are
Teams
gonna
that
give
can
you-
make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I was going
and
at.
can put up a fight in a playoff game. Maybe not be favored in playoff games, but can really, make you grind one out in an early playoff game.
Yeah, not like
I mean,
Super Bowl,
One,
but the
one
playoffs.
thing's for certain: the Eagles aren't on that list.
We're gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah, because of the division.
Wait, but you guys wouldn't make the playoffs in our division.
No.
So,
and I'm not under any illusion that they would.
I'm just because you love to throw these jokes, but like you have like 7 different favorite teams.
No,
That's
the
why
Jets
you be hitting it.
the Jets would not make the playoffs in any division.
Yeah, we're gonna make the playoffs. That's all that matters. Playoff team.
So this does it for this show. I want to give a Patreon shout out to Jairo Conrado for pledging $15, our only Patreon pledger. If you guys want to pledge, you guys can go to
I
patreon.com
feel like we just get one a week.
/Pick a Side podcast. So this is going to do it for this episode. We want to thank you guys for watching. If you guys can, like and subscribe the video. Follow us on all media platforms, TikTok, Instagram. They're all at Pick a Side Podcast. Thank you guys for watching and see you next time.